we will explore what comes next for the quarterback and Aaron Rodgers. I think after looking at that, my mind immediately goes to the head coach. Mike Tomlin has certainly maintained and developed a standard of Pittsburgh Steelers football, but unfortunately, Mac, over this last decade, that standard has been getting there and not making noise when you do arrive.
Yeah.
What has to change organizationally? And I'm not talking about an expulsion of head coach here. I'm not talking about a firing. Maybe that is part of the solution, but what in your mind has to change at the foundation of the Pittsburgh Steelers to elicit a different result?
This league, especially on the offensive side, guys, is built on playmakers, right? You got to have playmakers, and you got to have a few playmakers on your offense to have the postseason success that you would like to have. And clearly that showed up tonight when it comes to the lack thereof. So for Pittsburgh, I know they've been trying hard to go get playmakers and add more arsenal at the wide receiver position, but they got to go find someone. They got to go find someone and find the right guy that you can trust on and off the football field to be at your best to help whoever the quarterback will be. Because if your only playmaker is DK, good luck. You don't threaten anybody. No one is afraid of you. And the Houston Texans play that way. Their secondary guys never felt like they were threatened at all. I mean, you look at the separation or the lack thereof. They were right in the hip pockets of every pass catcher for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when Pittsburgh completed passes, it was hard. It was a hard struggle. Watching the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight, it felt like they played on a different field.
Yeah.
The field was 150 yards. It wasn't 100. It felt like they needed to go the extra 50 to get in scoring range. And I'm not just talking about touchdown scores. I'm talking about field goals. Just to attempt a field goal, it felt like they needed to drive an extra 50. So it starts for me there because Pittsburgh defensively, I know when you watch the final score, it's 30-6. Defensively, they only allowed 16 points. That's winning football, guys. They forced 3 turnovers. That's winning football. So the defense, I know they had some issues against the rushing attack here or there, but in totality, they played good enough to win. It was a defensive effort.
Yeah.
One defense played better, but one offense didn't have a pulse. So that's where I start, Joe.
To your point, 2 for 42 for DK Metcalf, and this was going to be that return from the suspension.
And a major drop.
In which he re-ingratiated himself to this fan base. And I will remind that after the altercation in Detroit, the remaining money on that contract no longer guaranteed. So DK Metcalf, they have a decision on what they want to do with him moving forward. But is that subtraction that becomes an addition? You need weapons. You need more than just DK in your mind. But Emery, I will take you to the head coach because there are playmakers and then there is maximizing the performance of your team. That falls on the lap of the head coach. Maybe you are at a talent deficit on a night like this, but do you think Mike Tomlin's still getting the most out of his guys?
Great question, because when I'm writing down, this situation kind of reminds me of Don Shula late stage, right? Then you also have John Harbaugh, who recently just got let go. Tom Coughlin, another one. You talk about guys that have won Super Bowls that have, the message tend to gotten stale toward the back end of their tenure at that spot that they held for so long. So this is unfortunately going to fall at the feet of Mike Tomlin, but also I think they got away from what makes Pittsburgh. When we talk about Pittsburgh Steelers football, we only talking about the defense, right? But when you're talking about Steelers at their heyday, you're talking about the run game and the defense. They can't run the football, and that hurt them in all of these playoff games that they've been losing, because the run game is usually your way you get back to neutral, and then your defense can take over. When they can't run the football, which they haven't been able to do the last 3 years with any level of ownership or consistency of, hey, we run the football and this is what we do, it almost makes you feel like the Steelers are practicing on 2 separate fields. The defense is over there, offense is over there, and they never come together and be able to build that callus that they say iron sharpens iron. So, again, I feel like the message maybe has gotten stale for Tomlin. And when you look at these coaches that have won Super Bowls that had the same type of effect more recently in John Harbaugh, those are questions that people are going to have to ask, and it's going to have to be answered pretty quickly, because you don't want things to continue to fall on deaf ears if nothing really changes.
And when you look at the North, Harbaugh already out, Stefanski as well. Could it be a third dismissal here in the AFC North that would leave only Zach Taylor a year over year? And I'm glad you nod your head like that. Emery, a word? Yeah.
Because the 7 losses, right? What got Harbaugh fired was the fact that all the losses be the same way. And with Pittsburgh, you feel like they're losing the same way. And I think that's the issue right there.
Mac, is this still the coach, the man, to get that sort of result we haven't seen for a better part of a decade?
Yes, because if you cannot tell me option B is better than option A,
Totally agree.
then what are you doing?
What is your solution beyond your expulsion?
Yeah, this organization, historically speaking, they don't do that, right? And I understand in terms of the disappointment in the playoffs for Mike Tomlin, but you have a fighting chance. And we all felt, let's keep it real now, and I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler through and through, and I oftentimes root and cheer for them. But the reality of the football eye, when you watch Pittsburgh and especially how they won ball games in the regular season, it wasn't really impressive. It was more of a gut and just grit, right? When you look at some of the other teams in the AFC in the playoffs, they had more playmakers. So for them to get to this moment, I think it was more of a letdown based on the other teams they were fighting against, a la the Baltimore Ravens. You know what I mean? So when you get to this moment and those issues that we saw in spurts in the regular season show up, they show up from start to finish in playoff football, right? And that's what we saw. So to answer your question, I know we've heard this time and time again because of the significant playoff win drought for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin. But if your option B ain't better than option A, it doesn't make any sense, in my opinion.
So you are saying it's a GM issue more so than a coaching issue?
Now, I'm not going to say that because Mike Tomlin has a lot of say-so in personnel, even though Omar Khan is the GM. What I'm saying is this. When you talk about building a championship roster, right, understanding and knowing what you're looking for, you want a team that's going to be physical, selfless, and play football the right way. And also, too, you need to be disciplined on and off the football field, right? Now, when you watch other championship teams, they don't have some of the issues that we've seen with Pittsburgh. So I think you need to get back to the old school mentality where we're not tolerating X, Y, and Z. And the first time we see something, we're going to make it known. And we're going to nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, you will become a better player on and off the football field. For Pittsburgh, when you look at some of the issues that we've seen in years past with different people, it's coming from the same position.
And I think what you're leading towards here is the ethos or the thought process behind getting rid of a George Pickens and bringing in a DK Metcalf. Your skill sets are similar there, in some ways the temperaments as well, or some of the character management that you're going to have to deal with both of those players is very similar. So if your solution is something similar, you're going to get a similar result.
And also, too, when you look at that situation, I know I've been harping on the lack of playmakers, but you had a playmaker in the building.
Yeah.
In the midst of a rookie contract that you shipped to Dallas, that performed like one of the best wide receivers in the world.
And that's when
for
you
a team that didn't even make the playoffs. So just imagine if you found a way to get the best out of George Pickens, similar to what Dallas saw this season, because outside of him being late for that Raider game, we didn't really hear too much negative pub coming from George outside of the few lackadaisical moments on the football field. But for the most part, George Pickens was a major bright spot. So in a game like tonight where you didn't have playmakers, just imagine if you had George and DK, along with how Aaron played before tonight's matchup. Playmakers are hard to come by. And when you draft one, you want to get the most out of that said guys because they don't just fall out of the sky. You know what I mean? So now for Pittsburgh, you're still trying to replenish what you lost in George Pickens. And you might not get that back. And that's why you're still fighting from within and having these moments in playoff football where they're squandering away. The last time they were in the playoffs, the same issue that we were talking about then, we're talking about now. Lack of playmakers at the pass catcher position. And at that time, you had George Pickens with no one else.
Yeah.
So what you did was you acquired DK and you moved on from George Pickens, and now you had the same problem. DK and no one else. You had to go get Adam Thielen, MVS. Right? You got guys who pretty much on the tail end of their career that come help save your offense in the passing game.
And you're talking about getting the most out of a player, but also getting the most out of a person, and that was a first-year head coach in Brian Schottenheimer who got the most and insulated George Pickens with what he needed there in Dallas. I want to take us back to the idea of Coach Harbaugh being let go, and the reason behind that felt like head coach and quarterback couldn't get on the same page. That issue doesn't live here in Pittsburgh because we don't know what the quarterback position is going to look like moving forward. If it is Aaron Rodgers, as you said, the franchise has left the door open for another year of that. It seemed like Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers were always on the same page. What do you think the proper decision is for the franchise at the quarterback position? Is it to welcome Aaron Rodgers for another year? And other side of that, Mac, what do you think is best for Aaron Rodgers? Because this was the type of night that makes you look long and hard at what 43 years old in this league looks like.
For Pittsburgh, if they choose to have Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back, I think you should open that door. Because outside of Aaron Rodgers, you have Mason Rudolph, you have Will Howard, who we didn't see anything from because he was injured. Right? When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's the same storyline. Your draft slot does not warrant you being in a position to go get one of the best quarterbacks available in the draft. And I, for one, feel like this is a watered-down class at the quarterback position anyway. Potentially, Will Howard might be better than whoever it is you could draft in the first round where you're slated to be at. That's number one. Number two, if you're Aaron Rodgers, one thing I can say about Aaron Rodgers, guys, viewers, he had fun this season. He enjoyed playing the game.
Yeah.
That excitement returned back for Aaron Rodgers. If he still has that feeling and he believes he still has positivity left to give the game, to be a winner, I think he should consider. But under this circumstance, you tell Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, if I come back, you got to go get me a dude. And I don't want a rookie. I don't want someone who we got to hope and wait and see the progression and see can they emerge to be a major playmaker for our team. I need someone who is proven, who I know when they get into our huddle, he is a game breaker. He is a playmaker. Because if you, let's throw out a name, if you say you can get an A.J. Brown, right? A veteran player who instantly comes into that locker room and he is going to respect who? Aaron Rodgers. Right? The same relationship of respect that we saw with DK and some of the other guys. They all respect Aaron Rodgers. If you telling me, if they told Aaron Rodgers that, or if Aaron Rodgers made that statement to them, maybe it can be appealing. But it got to be a guy who we all know, man, they got them one. Instead of, drafting a young guy and hoping and praying that they can develop and be ready to go week one.
They need an action plan. They can't be reactionary with this and wait for Aaron Rodgers. I feel like the Steelers have to shift their mindset. Go on the offensive side and go and get whoever you want and make those active changes.
Regardless.
Yeah. Don't wait on. Go get a quarterback. Find your scouts. Hey, who's a guy that we can work with if you don't have one on the roster? Who's some of the receivers we can go get? Because if you're sitting and waiting, I feel like they did this when they were trying to transition from, the Bubby Brissers and all that, and they stumbled into the Tommy Maddox, and then they stumbled into the Ben Roethlisberger. When they got Roethlisberger, they were active to go and get Roethlisberger. They traded up to go get him.
But since then,
it's been like, well, we'll just wait and see. They hung around with Roethlisberger for
drafted Kenny in a class that you weren't impressed about quarterbacks.
So you kind of have to make a way to go and be aggressive. I just feel like it's been a lot of wait and see. And when you wait, you're late. And when you're late, you see what happens in the rest of the division.
I, for one, would rather the Pittsburgh Steelers, before doing what they did when they drafted Kenny Pickett, kind of taking a chance on a quarterback in a very, very watered-down quarterback class. Stick with what you have. See what's up with Aaron Rodgers. If not, see what the deal is. Make it a competition between Will Howard and Mason Rudolph.
Player acquisition, and player development.
And then bring more talent around.
Yeah.
Because when you make a move at the quarterback position in a high draft pick and it doesn't work out, it fails, it can kind of set you back. It can kind of set you back. So if you're Pittsburgh, if you look at this quarterback class, and I know you've been doing your homework on this upcoming draft class at the quarterback position, where Pittsburgh is slotted, I think, somewhere in the 20s, seeing who's available. If it doesn't make sense, then add talent. But then you still have other resources that you could utilize that can improve that said position. And to your point, if Aaron Rodgers decides to wait, you still got to make these actions like Aaron Rodgers might not be there.
Bingo. That's
Whether
all
it's
I'm saying.
2026 or 2027,
Yes.
we are closer to the end than we are the beginning for Aaron Rodgers. We will continue to bring you all the latest on that decision right here on CBS Sports HQ. But a tough end of the season this go-around and possibly a tough end of the career. It's a pick six by Kalen Bullock, the last attempt for Rodgers, at least this season. When you look at the comprehensive numbers put together over these 20-some seasons for Aaron Rodgers, the passer rating, the MVPs, the passing yards, and the wins. It's all legendary stuff.